in your experience, Johan, in working with finance, so different profiles within finance. You have some people that come from the accounting stream, some people that have come from corporate finance, banking, some people that come from ops, etc. So there's all these different titles, like what is a finance manager? What is head of finance, VP of finance, FP&A, RevOps? It's all mixed together. Can you share maybe like an experience of where finance has been a really valuable business partner for you and where that has not been the case?
I guess a good example is when I joined Go Student. Actually, my first day we did onboarding with a guy that came in from for FP&A to lead FP&A, and he just come from Zalando, right? And Zalando understands its unit economics, right? It's an e-commerce company at scale. They've been doing this for quite a while. So when I approached him and I said, hey, it'd be really interesting to understand like what drives the numbers here. That's always my question, is like, because I don't want to end up in a situation in an exec meeting again where we're just talking about numbers driving numbers. Like I really want to be able to like put meat behind it. Like what are the so if you think of like things like something is a basket metric like gross margin, what are the contributors to that, right? And then you can kind of have like a bit of a layered, almost like a hierarchy of metrics that drive those metrics. And what was cool is that like I said it, I spoke to him for 2 minutes and he got it right away. And he's like, and like by next week, essentially his team had already modeled this out and was working with our product team to kind of figure out what's driving what. Like you've got different types of profiles within a finance team. So this guy that came from Zalando really understood FP&A. But I think a lot of finance people don't come from that, like kind of like, I call it futurism, because one day a finance person was like, actually what finance is predicting the future. And clearly that was someone more on the FP&A side of things than the accounting side. But I got really excited about finance because I was like, hey, wait a minute, I want to be a futurist as well. So I started modeling stuff out, even though I was a product person.
I guess I think I can give like maybe a good example that hopefully the crowd can understand. An accounting person, or I think first of all, when you're in the scale up stage of growth, I think the thing that you have to kind of always keep in mind is that cash is king, right? And often the first hired, cash is king, queen, whatever, cash is the top of the food chain. And you really have to, really make sure that you have cash. But you also want to make sure that you're creating future enterprise value. And there's often times that those two things can be in, and I don't want to say conflict because you have to have cash. And often the first finance hire that you have is that someone who is watching the cash and making sure that there's going to be enough cash. And while they may want to do, scenario building or scenario planning, they're there, and there's a lot of things around cash. You're kind of, collecting, days outstanding. You're looking to, project how much is going to be in the bank, how much, talking to investors or figuring out loans, all of those things. And they take a lot of time, and it's a very specific skill set. But look, let me unfold an example. Here's where kind of understanding unit economics and kind of bridging and being able to have a conversation is this. Sometimes you can be selling a product that is going to bring more cash in. You're going to get a huge, enterprise deal. Maybe you operate in the SMB space and you've got this big whale and it's going to bring in all of this cash. And so the finance person or the accounting person who is responsible for cash is like, yes, let's bring that in. But if you don't start looking at unit economics and saying that one customer is going to bring in all of this cash, but it's going to redirect all of the effort of the R&D team to build something new to actually service that customer base. And they're not going to be able to build anything for the others. Or it's taking up a lot of time, sales time, where that same salesperson could be selling 30 of the lower price things with less risk. You have to start being able to have those conversations. And what it means is sometimes you have someone on the product side or the marketing side who's so frustrated because they can understand what's going to happen. But what they can't do is they can't bridge the difference between the conversation to say, this person, you have to understand, their job is to make sure we have enough cash, and this is going to bring us more cash. And so they get so frustrated, and you create this kind of like animosity between the two groups. And if the person who's in finance would just have some empathy and understanding that this person over here has a legitimate concern, but they don't know how to speak your language, and you don't know how to speak their language. And if you actually take the time, instead of ignoring each other, and get underneath that conversation, it may be that you're going to make the trade-off to go after that customer that is going to bring in more cash, because cash right now is the most important thing. And as a leadership team, we're going to deal with the rest and maybe have lower unit economics. But it's when you make those decisions that you've ignored each other, and you make those decisions and you go on your merry way with the same product roadmap and the same things, that's where dissonance happens. That's where things stop. And so I think it's really understanding when you're selling to that new cohort, or that, sorry, I'm going to use it, when you're selling to that new customer that's really outside of the core thing. Yes, it's a stretch, and yes, it's a lot of cash, but it has so many cascading effects because you're creating a new unit. Even though you think my product can do all of those things, it can do things, but in fact, the bigger customers you sell to, they're assuming certain things are in your product that usually aren't there, that enterprise buyers just assume are there. So that's just a question. So I think it's understanding that they have, each person in these functional leadership roles, as you're scaling up, has something that they've got to make sure that happens. I need to make sure the cash is there. And it's how do you find ways to bridge the gap to have that finance person who maybe wasn't at the leadership role before, and this functional leader who wasn't at the leadership role before, realize that they both have to grow and learn how to actually communicate with each other to do good things. And it means the functional leaders need to learn finance, and the finance people need to learn patience and kind of understand how to work together to bridge that.